if you could go back in a time machine to the 25-year-old version of yourself and give yourself some advice.
Learn to say no. Don't be a people pleaser and stop buying things to impress people that don't care.
Imagine having direct access to someone who's navigated life's toughest terrains and come out stronger. Someone who's been there, done that, and can guide you with empathy, experience, and honesty. This isn't just advice. It's a lifeline, a strategy session, a chance to learn from my journey so you can accelerate yours. Without the ability to be self-aware and introspective, the ability for you to get to where you want to go, nearly impossible.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the David Guttman podcast. I have a really exciting guest today. Andrew Sallee is here. Super successful real estate mogul, philanthropist, started in a trailer park and ultimately became mega successful. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
And they believe if you have any wealth, you go straight to hell. You can't
Right.
have wealth and get into heaven.
Right.
My brother is 480 pounds. He's 5'10".
Okay.
I like having a six pack.
Right,
I enjoy
right.
it. It takes work and discipline. My brother's like, you're just the dumbest guy on earth. He's 2 years older than me and still says that today.
Really?
So yeah, we could talk all day on these stories for sure. Not kidding. Yeah.
It's funny. I have I just have one older brother. He's 3.5 years older than me. Not quite 400 something pounds, but he's about maybe an inch shorter than me. Maybe 5'6.5", 5'7", 320, 330.
Oh, so you get it though.
But he'd been like a competitive, great athlete growing up, soccer player, wrestler, and so for
Wow, so
him,
something turned.
yeah. No, well, most ex wrestlers, you usually end up winning. I mean, I'm a wrestler. I was a Division I wrestler, so it's like you either can stay in shape or you eat everything that isn't moving. There's not a lot in the middle.
That's
It's not a
right.
lot,
Because
you're
they
so
can
used to
dial
cutting
it in.
weight.
I've never wrestled, but man, they can cut weight in a second.
Exactly. You come in. My brother's, the sad part is he's lost all the weight and then he'll gain it back. Lose it all again. Like we're talking like losing like 150 pounds.
Oh yeah, my
Like,
brother was 480 at his peak, and now today I'm 211, and he's like 235.
Oh wow. So he has lost most of it then.
He had a heart attack. Would I change my life around? And we'll get into it, I guess. But
Yeah.
in 2021, they gave him 6 months to live, and he was cool with it. He became an atheist. He was like, I'm good. I smoke pot 18 hours a day. I got no freaking worries. 3 packs of cigarettes.
Right.
I'm golden. So then I really stepped into my brother's life, and he lost a couple of 100 pounds.
Wow. So if you don't mind, so we're rolling if you don't mind, but
Oh,
if
okay.
yeah, so just because this is great, like, but so I'd love to know just from my own personal experience with my brother. So tell me how you stepped into his life.
Well, yeah. And you just don't know what's going to work, right? To be honest.
Sure.
So my brother is like my best friend, my hero. When we were young, my nemesis a little bit. But my brother obviously always had a weight problem, always a little bit lazy. He had never been really driven. Well, in his 20s, late 20s, he got married, and then he got a divorce. She was unfaithful, and he just went off the rails with, like, he had never smoked cigarettes. He had never done the weed. He got into the weed, and then that took over his entire life. I know it's going to sound weird and crazy, but I bought my first limousine at the age of 27. So from 27 to 47, I had a private limo. So he
Okay.
was my limo driver for 12, 13 years.
Okay.
And I didn't really care that he was way overweight.
Right.
Honestly, he was the happiest guy in the world. He escalated up to 480 pounds. He's 5'10".
Right.
He was 485 at 5'10". And I think I was so self-absorbed in my ego, I didn't really care. He drove the limo. I gave him a salary. We had fun, and he was happy. He was really happy. Then in 2021, he had a massive heart attack, and the doctors gave him 6 months to live. And the sad part is I was going on a mastermind, a yacht event with Mark Evans, and I had to immediately fly home because he was okay with it. That was the scary part. The doctor
Okay.
called me. We had a conversation. They gave him 6 months to live, and he's like, Andy, I'm cool. We're good. I had a great life. I'm happy as heck as can be. And I never knew the button to push. And my brother has a unique ability. I'm from Iowa. My brother has a unique ability to have an amazing life on about 20,000 a year. Maybe 30,000 is the most my brother has ever made in his lifetime. Right, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm talking happy.
Right.
I mean, way happier than me on 30 grand a year. I mean, the most he's ever made is maybe 35, but he can stretch that really far. So always really happy. So when that happened, I didn't know what to do, to be honest. I threw a Hail Mary out there and offered him a $10,000 bonus if he would lose. He was driving my limo. If he would lose 50 pounds. And he was like, I just want the $10,000. And it's funny too, because American people are general public. First thing my brother said to me, are you going to make me pay taxes on that? No, literally, not kidding you. He's like, all right, I'll do the challenge if you don't hit me with the income tax. I was like, okay. So anyway, I obviously would just offered him a cash bonus.
Right.
And that was like, I hate to admit it, but it was financial incentive that he didn't really care about, but he needed some kind of carrot. And in the carrot was a $10,000 cash envelope of cash.
Right.
And he wanted one of these stupid little, I don't really even know what they are, but he loves these little motorbikes. They're like electric bikes that you ride.
Right.
And he got addicted to that thing. So I hired a personal trainer to work out with him 5 days a week for a year. He got his little bike and he lost 50 pounds. And then I gave him another bonus, and then he lost 100 pounds. And then the incentive was, this sounds crazy, but he needed massive plastic surgery. So we had to cut off like 27 or 29 pounds of skin.
Oh my God.
9-hour surgery, multiple 5-figure surgery, and pain and scary.
Yeah.
But he had that carrot. I don't know how to explain it, except I didn't know what button to push. He didn't really care. And he wanted that toy of that bike, and he wanted that cash envelope, and he didn't want to give any money to the government. And then he wanted the surgery. And so you fast forward from 2021, he was 480 pounds. Today, he works out every day. Thank you, Lord God. And he's got a girlfriend. I don't know what we're allowed to say here, but he went over a decade without having sex. Never talked to a girl. He, like, for 12 years, never did anything. Now he's madly in love. He's like 30 pounds heavier than me. He's like 240. Wow. And he rides that little darn bike 20, 30, 40, 50 miles a day. And that's like his fun. He loves that little bike. He hasn't given up some of the, the naughty stuff, the devil's lettuce, but he's happy and he's lost the weight. And I'm really fortunate about that. And you know what? That's actually helped me, because that took me and take my level of fitness to the next level. Cause I was like, dude, if you're going to do that, you're kind of my hero. I better step it up. At my heaviest point, when I got chunky and you get a little lazy, I'm like 245, 250 and a little chunkier. I was lifting a lot, but I wasn't, low, lean body weight. So it kind of pushes us both. But yeah, I didn't know. You just got to kind of find that button.
So bribery is not one I've tried. Straight up bribery is not one I've tried with my brother.
And honestly, it never crossed my mind. My brother never really cared about finance. He never cared about money. He's like, I never want the stress that you have. I don't want the problems you have. And I don't want the cars, houses, toys, whatever that stuff is. That's just never been a thing for him. But I tell you, 200 pounds off a man changes a man. Madly in love. His girlfriend's great. This is crazy. My family doesn't believe in saying I love you. We say that now. So whole world of change. And, he has a regular doctor that we hired for him. You got NAD treatments. So a lot of stuff that we do. So massive game changer. So I think that just makes us better. When we change a life, it makes us want to be a little bit better, ups our game a little bit.
So how did you, if you don't mind talking a little bit, because my research on you, didn't go to college, or maybe you went to college briefly. I forget which of the two it was.
I went for funny story. So I grew up in Illinois, Iowa, very boring, small town, 475,000 people in 5 towns. And Iowa's not sexy. So I graduated high school in 1994. I was an emancipated adult. My parents and I didn't really see eye to eye. So I became an adult at the age of 15. So I rented an apartment. My parents moved 4 states away. I didn't speak to my parents for my junior year of high school till my sophomore year of college. My sophomore year of college, I'm at this home improvement company, and I'm telemarketing, making $5-6 an hour, calling to
Right.
set appointments for siding, windows, and doors. And I'm going to school at night.
Right.
And I go to my accounting instructor and I just said, I'm kind of young, dumb, and hungry. And I see these sales guys at this home improvement company back then driving Cadillacs, that Rolex, and, Jeep Cherokees back then. And I'm like, I want that. So I got to go to college. And my accountant, I asked him and I said, if I rock it, I wanted to get to finance and accounting.
Right.
What do you make in a year? And he's like, I'm on pace. I'm going to make $41,000 a year. So I dropped out of school the very next day and then asked for the company to give me a shot at sales.
Right.
So I'm 19 years old. I'm turning 20 and I drop out of college and they're like, we won't give you sales calls. It was just like the movies, like the leads were so priceless,
Right.
but they were like, we're not going to give you leads because you don't know what you're doing. You're a dumb idiot. Pretty much. You're 19.
Right.
You just dropped out of college. My mentor at that time was Jim Morando and Chuck Akery, and they had the Rolexes and the diamonds and the beautiful home and the trips. And I'm like, I just want that. So anyway, they were like, we'll give you an opportunity. We'll give you a bunch of books to read, but if you go knock doors and set your own appointments, then you can go sell window siding and doors and roofing and room additions yourself, and you'll make commission. So crazily back then, I actually did a little bit of that. And then I hired my brother. So Dallas and I would go like evenings and weekends and we'd knock doors to set appointments. And then I would come in and sell them. So whether he set the appointment or I did, and the age of, in 20 years old, I remember it specifically. My 1099 for that year, first year of income, was $102,000.
Wow.
And that's probably, I know, not a lot of money today. And it's not real money. But in Iowa in 1997,
That was real money.
$102,000.
Yeah.
I thought I was a billionaire. You were rich. And I really didn't know what to do with the money. But I just had a goal to make six figures because they were like, the number one sales rep at the company, just crushing it, makes $130K a year, 150, something like that. And I'm like, that's all I thought in my head. I didn't ask what the middle guy could do. I didn't ask it. I just said, what's the record?
Right.
And they're like, we had one sales rep that it was a woman by the name of Shirley Dunn, who had made like $150,000. I'm making $5 an hour.
Right.
I was like, tell me, I'll do anything. And I was the guy when they had leads, it was 2 hours away on a Saturday or a Friday night at 7 p.m. I'm all in. Put me in, coach. So I made that $102,000 the first year, and then I knew I wanted more. Right? You get a little greedy. Well, the owner of my company at that time, his name was Ben Akery. He owned this beautiful home in a neighborhood in Rock Island, Illinois, where he had his own tennis courts and he had an indoor swimming pool. And I was like, I want that.
Right.
So it happened to be that his neighbor's house about a block down the road went up for sale for about $150,000. And I know that's not a lot of money today, but in Iowa and 20 plus years ago, 28 years ago, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So he told me, he's like, well, you could buy that house, but you got to save up $40,000 for a down payment. So I did. So that first year of earnings, all I did was save a large chunk of my money towards the down payment. And then within a year of selling, going door to door, I'm neighbors to the owner of my company.
Right.
So that was kind of cool.
That's
So
clever.
then from the age of 20 to the age of 25, I escalated my income from at 20, I made 100. And then by about 25 years old, I was making about 400,000 a year.
Wow. And now just selling siding.
So it's
and,
crazy.
yeah.
I know people think it's nuts because I'm 25. I'm a skydiver. I have 2,300 skydives. I have 900 hours flying airplanes, 2,300 skydives, 100 scuba dives, rock climbing. I like crazy stuff and adrenaline. So anyway, I'm working 30 hours a week selling window siding and doors. I'm literally traveling 6 to 8 weeks a year. I'm going to Hawaii, going to Mexico. I'd never traveled. My first flight was at 20. I grew up in trailer parks. So I'm making 400,000+ a year, working 30 hours a week. And then crazy, my boss, Chuck Akery, gives me this book by this guy named Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Sure.
And in the book, it specifically states, how to do passive income. What do you make if you don't earn? Stuff like that. Obviously, how much money do you make while you sleep? Well, in the back of the book, he wrote something, and I still have it. Obviously, it's dear to my heart. He's passed now. And he died with, no wealth. But what really hit me is he wrote on the back of the book, probably bad idea for a boss, but he wrote on the back of the book, don't end up like me, because he was, three decades older than me, but earning a lot of money. I mean, jewelry, Rolexes, $2 million home, a spare vacation home, country club, VIP treatments, boat, every toy you can imagine. But he said, don't end up like me where you have no wealth. You've made a lot of income, but you've spent a lot of income. Focus on this book. You're 27 years old. Figure out a way to make money while you don't sleep. And that opened my eyes completely. So when I met the accountant, I quit school. He gave me that book. A month later, I quit for him. So it didn't work out great for him. I mean, we stayed friends, so it all worked out well. But I literally, at that time, I had that Rolex. I had my Submariner Rolex was a big key point in my life because I wanted to keep up with those guys. And I bought the house, the Cherokee, 2 Wave Runners, a Corvette. And all I wanted then was, I wanted that passive income, and I wanted to be able to make income while I didn't sleep. So at the age of 27, I read this book, How Much Money Do You Make While You Sleep, from Robert Kiyosaki. And I literally, it was like, I got to move to starting my own company. So I'm making, $400,000 a year, but I'm making these guys wealthy. I was selling, millions of dollars a year in business, but they were making a lot more than me, right?
Sure.
And then the owner of the company handed the business over to his kids, and they wanted to change the pay structure because, to be honest, I'm coming and going as I please. I'm a 1099 guy. I'm making a lot of money. I have some toys. So I end up actually, at that point in time, I had saved up some money in Smith Barney because my ego wanted to keep up with those other sales guys. So we were doing options trading, stock market, puts, calls. And, that was a coffee talk at the office. Like, I just put $5,000 on this trade and I'm going to make 20 on it. I think I lost like $50,000, $80,000 just trying to keep up with the Joneses on the investment stuff. So then I was like, I just loved the book so much. It changed my life dramatically. So what I did was, I started my own home improvement company. I was 2002. I was 27 years old. And I literally went from working 30 hours a week, cash in the bank, reserves, no worries, right? And start my own home improvement company. I sell the Corvette, I sell the Wave Runners, I sell the toys, and then I start my own home improvement company, and I start working like 100 hours a week. I'm the janitor, the salesman, the construction manager. We're running window siding, room additions, everything. The first year in business, we did $1.3 million in sales. I make like zero. So, I mean, it was like, you ever been to that point? Like you're not working, making $400,000 a year. You sell all your toys, clean out your Smith Barney account, start your home improvement company. Now you're making zero. And then everybody's laughing at you because you're stressed. You're working like crazy. Everything's going wrong. Now, within like 18 months, the money started to come in. And then through that 18-month process, I start a company. And then I decide to buy like a duplex, a 4-plex, a 6-plex. But the big caveat at that, I'm 27 in Iowa, I buy this 35-plex. It was $1.3 million. And I could tell you like a T because I was negotiating on this deal and it was $1,250,000. And to get the deal, it was a nice class A-, B+ apartment called Forest Park Apartments in Rock Island, Illinois. And it went from $1,250,000 to $1.3 million. And I know wealthy guys in the world today, they're thinking big deal, just do it. Only thing I can think of in my head, and I'm being honest and transparent as I can be here and forthright, is I didn't have the extra $10,000 because it went from $1,250 to $1.3. That $50,000, 20% down was an extra $10,000 down payment. I had no idea where I was going to come up with that. And this was, I had 30 days out from the closing. So I had, like I said, cashed in my Smith Barney. I had bought a few smaller properties. I actually got, and I've never done it since, but at that age, I was able to get American Express to loan me $10,000. I don't even think they do that, or I don't know how that works, but they loaned me like a cashier's check for $10,000 to do that. I was also $50,000 short, to be honest, because I got in a little over my head because I wanted to buy this deal that was like under $1 million. But this one for 1.3 was nice, and it was going to cash flow at $3,500 a month, which back then I only wanted to get into the game was to make enough cash flow to cover my fancy house and my fancy Jeep Cherokee. So that was about 30 some hundred a month in payments at 27. I just wanted enough cash flow to guarantee my toys. So I did, and I literally borrowed the $10,000 from American Express. I don't even know how I pulled that off, but anyway. And then a friend of mine had like a wealthy father, and he was kind of a wealthy rich kid guy, and his dad had payphones, and he lent me $50,000. Pretty much cash, and pretty much if you don't pay me back $60,000 in 90 days, you won't ever walk again type situation.
Got it.
And I'm being honest, it was just hard and to the truth, and it was the best education I ever got because I borrowed the $50,000, bought the complex, paid $260,000 down payment. It all ended up being $262,000. And then I worked my booty off and just crushed it in business. My income went up exponentially because I had to make, I had to pay this guy back $60,000 on a 90-day term, and I ended up paying him back in 42 days. So, I mean, I just crushed it. Like, I got to make it. And it was great because we became friends and he became mentor to me. So that kind of launched my career in the apartment. So at that time, I have the 35, a 6, a 4, and 2 2s. And then a year later, I did the same thing on a 55 plex. Then a year later, I did it with a 56 plex. Then a year later, a 70 plex. And then 120 plex. So long story short, from the age of 27 to the age of 37, I had accumulated just under 1,000 units. So I had 985 apartments by the age of 38 years old. Now, this is winging it. I didn't know what I was doing. Today's world is so much different. Like I've stated before, I built my first $100 million portfolio, no partners, no raised capital, no syndication, just winging it and hustling and just going from day one, like, I'm going to do whatever Robert Kiyosaki said and build enough portfolio or passive income to build that net worth. And it was funny too, because we were talking a minute ago, the biggest struggle was not me mentally, because mentally I was willing to do whatever it takes. When you have nothing to lose, you just kick butt and take names, right? But it was friends and family. Like they're the ones that are like, dude, you're making, $500,000 a year. Back then I tracked, and I brought my books here to show you if you wanted, but I tracked, like if I made $400,000 a year, X went to church, X went to philanthropy, X, went to God, X went to travel, X went to Rolexes, X went to gifts. I've always had a love for watches and cars, but I wanted to reward myself, but X went to investments into my future. I had a future column. So what I tried to do is journal that from the year 2000, as my book starts, year 2000, I started. Whatever I made, I wanted to be able to walk away at the end of the year. Whatever I made, I could track every penny. X went to the IRS, X went to wherever, but I could track how much went into my future column of investments. And at one point I was investing 69, 70, 71% of my income. So all of my friends were starting to make good money as well. But what were they doing? They're buying the second home and the country club and the Ferrari. And I couldn't do that yet. Now, I'll be honest, I wanted it. And I was crazy jealous and I wanted all of that. But I knew I had to buy the assets first to kind of pay for that. But so that was kind of my mentality on the first 1,000 apartments.
Right. But we kind of glossed over. So again, you're emancipated at 15. If your dad and your grandfather were both pastors living in a trailer park.
I went to 4 high schools, 4 junior highs. My parents firmly believed and said every day, a wealthy man cannot get into heaven. If you have any wealth, you cannot enter heaven. It's the old, a camel can go through the eye of a needle easier
Right.
then a wealthy man can go to heaven. And my mom passed 2.5 years ago. My dad is still alive and he still believes it.
Well, so, but how did you, so you clearly decided, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to have the kind of life that I want. What was was there a coach, a teacher, a mentor early on that said, cause you hadn't been exposed to Rich Dad, Poor Dad yet. That
No.
came a little bit later.
No.
So what was the thing that said, this isn't for me. This is other directions where I want to go.
I think I don't know. I think I didn't really have a person at that time. I remember when I was real young, the big thing was I was a broke kid in Aledo, Illinois, this tiny farm town. I was even homeschooled for a year. My parents were, Christian school, church 4 times a week and, pray 3 hours a day. It was tough. And I love God. Now I'm much more into faith than I was then because it was so shoved down my throat and it was so harsh. But I honestly wanted to fit in. I wanted significance. I think I was chasing significance, which I probably have been my whole life.
Right.
So at a younger age, to be crazy, I wanted Reebok tennis shoes. I remember these exactly, Reebok tennis shoes, and I wanted Guess jeans. And my parents were like, those are the devil. So I went out and took rocks from the local train station and by the train, and then I sold them door to door, and I had my brother as my assistant, and I made enough money to buy those Guess jeans and those Reeboks. So I wanted something to fit
rocks?
in. Yeah, I sold rocks door to door.
You painted them, or you just said, here's a rock?
So what's funny is, when I first got the rocks and I was selling them door to door, dude, that was my first experience in door to door. I know this is crazy and totally honest, it's crazy. But anyway, it got me into knocking doors and siding windows, making 6 figures. But at the beginning, I got the rocks, I cleaned them up and painted them, had my brother help me go door to door to sell. And then after I got good at it, be honest with you, we barely cleaned them. We were just, they were cool rocks. My brother helped me and we made good money. Okay. I even, you're really going to laugh, but in Iowa, there's these numbers on your curb, like your house, my address was 3320. On the curb, you could do, you do this painting thing, little spray can paint, and you do the numbers. Wouldn't you like the pizza delivery guy to find your house a little bit easier?
Right.
So on Saturdays and Sundays, I would go knock door to door and I would spray for $5. If you, back then people had money, cash. Who has cash on them now, right? It's all cards. Now I'd have a Venmo or whatever app you'd have or something kind of app. But I would knock on the door for $5 and I would spray your numbers on your house.
Okay.
Kind of silly, right? But at 18, 19 years old, I'm making an extra $500 a week doing that.
Wow.
So I'm making an extra $20,000 a year just spray painting numbers. I even sold Kirby vacuums in high school, when I was a junior in high school, I was making $500 a week selling Kirby vacuums door to door. So sales was in my thing, but I always kind of just wanted the nicer things in life. So I was chasing significance and kind of fit in a little bit. I was tiny. I was, 5'10" and 5'6", I think, and 142 pounds. I was a little bitty. So I was chasing a little bit significance. And I think I've kind of lived my whole life. When people go left, I go right. When that happened with my parents, they were very judgmental of wealth, but all they did was argue and fight about money. I don't know if you've ever heard that story, but if you have any wealth, you're the devil, you're evil. But all you guys do is fight about money, and you never pay the rent because we got kicked out every year of our house, of our trailer, our apartment. And you never pay your bills. They've never changed that mentality ever. But people that do pay their bills and build hospitals and statues, they're the devil.
Right. Well, so so you obviously grew up very religious. Sounds like you still are quite religious now.
Yes.
Maybe talk about that journey, because you somehow were able to stay on the path of remaining religious, but sort of push to the side the whole, hey, a wealthy person won't be welcomed in heaven.
Right. I think I've always lived my life on faith, of course. I've always given to church. I've always tried to give my 10% of tithe. But to be totally honest, I have been so blessed. I mean, I've had 6 parachutes not work. in skydiving. I've crashed multiple cars. I've wrecked a motorcycle at 150 miles an hour. I've pulled off real estate deals that I don't even know how I bought that 35 plex. I have been so blessed by God. I don't know how people drive down the road or jump out of an airplane or get in an airplane without having faith. I mean, I'm much more faithful now because I'm so grateful for what God has done for me. And for now, it's more like helping like my brother or the young kid. It's not like how many millions we create or how many millions we create for others. Now my 20s, I obviously lived in a lot of ego. My 30s was a lot of ego. My 40s is not much of an ego anymore because I also thank God. We could not talk about my, wins. We could talk about my losses. I got a lot more of those. And those have taught me a lot of that. But I think I've always stayed aligned with God. I've kind of always, and you're going to laugh. I don't think I've ever said this on air before, but even when I was a sales guy, I literally wrote, they had a sales training book. So every day I'd drive to my appointments, and sometimes that was an hour or 2 hours a day of driving. All the way to my appointments, I listened to education. Always did that from the age of 20 to the age of 40. Education, when you drive to a sales call, it's an hour away, 2 away. That was education. And though the other flip side of that is on the way back was religion. I always listen to a religion. I love Joel Osteen. Currently today myself, people think I'm crazy on this, but I spend a minimum of 30 minutes a day. I try to do 60 with Joel Osteen. And I know people think that's nuts, but one of my mentors is Scott Scheel in a mastermind called Commercial Academy. His wife came up to me a year ago and he's like, Scott listens to Joel every single day. So a year ago, I started that. And I tell you, that's been amazing. Like, and it's funny too, because my parents didn't like Joel Osteen because he's wealthy.
Right.
Like I told him like 10 years ago, I'm like, I really like this guy. I want to meet him.
Right.
He's just so cool. And I like how he speaks. And they're like, he's of the devil. He is not cool. He has a $10 million house or something like that. I can't remember. They just didn't like it. They were like, stay away from that. And I tell you, I have not met that guy, but I love that guy. And I'll be honest, I spend at least 30 minutes a day. Today I did 60 minutes. Like I start my day at 4 a.m., 4:30. Today I did the first hour with Joel Osteen. And I try to get on my knees and pray every night before I go to bed. But I've also, I think my faith is aligned too, because I've seen so much out there. When you go through the business world, I'll be honest, your family, your best friends. Like I just had one of my best friends steal a considerable amount of money from me, 6 figures, and knowingly doing it and just and no big deal to them. And no big deal at all. And it hurt. Like mentally, I'm like, I don't know how people can do this. And I've been rewarded a lot. I mean, we've gone through a lot of struggles in the last decade, obviously. But I think the man we become when no one is watching is who we are. And I think God says that best. It's like when you're in the corner or whenever nobody can see what you're doing, somebody can, right?
Yeah.
That's when real you emerges and who you become. And I'm thankful I'm thankful from that from my parents.
Well, one of the things I heard from one of the other interviews I saw you do, and it resonated with me because I've seen it myself with a couple of friends of mine, is people that have really pushed hard to get to a certain level of success and wealth. When they get there, and I think you'd said you'd gotten advice like, "Hey, why don't you retire?" And I think you sort of it took a swing at retiring at 38. And in both cases, both of my friends, like once they had their 8 and 9 figure exits, the wheels came off. It was like then there was nothing pushing them anymore.
I was wondering if you're going to ask about that.
Nothing driving them, and in both cases, there was sort of just like this hopelessness that usually people think, hey, I finally arrived. I made it. I got the thing I said I wanted all this time. And it's like, remember, I think the stat is something like 60 or 65% of gold medal winners seriously consider suicide within 6 months of winning their gold medal. And it's because like, hey, I've been in the pool since I was 3 and now I got this hunk of metal and that's it. Like, I don't know. So talk about that experience, because I think there's some interesting lessons to be learned there.
And I wondered if you were going to bring that up today, because that's one of my lowest points in life. And I know that sounds crazy because everybody, either laughs at me or mocks at me about that. But so I'm in Iowa And, I'm struggling. I mean, I'm building at this time, I have a roofing company. I have 200 employees. We're doing $1 million plus a month. You're making a lot of money. So you're buying buildings, and the real estate was just a hobby. Real estate was never for real. It was just a hobby fun to buy buildings. I never thought it was going to create the wealth that I have today or the passive income I have today. So I didn't know exactly what it was creating because, that debt reduction, that's a gift from God. Right. That appreciation of property, it's a gift from God. That depreciation of taxes is just a gift. So, if my friend needed $100,000 for a bar or a business, I had a embroidery franchise, a second embroidery franchise. I bought a Michael's Fun World. We had go-karts. We had driving ranges. We had putt-putt. I had I had a radon company, house flipping. Anyway, long story, I had like 6 different businesses, right? And I'm struggling on everything. And it's just because, you can't be the best at everything. I had 6 different companies, hundreds of employees, but the backbone was my real estate. And my friends were just like, Andy, at this time I have the Ferrari. I loved my Ferrari. My home, I had a $1.5 million house in Iowa. That was a lot. So I paid those all off, and my friends, like I had just, went over, the $10 million mark. I had, I think at this time, to be honest, it was like, I think 3.7 million in cash, no debt. And my passive income for my portfolio was about 75,000 a month. So my friends were like, why are you struggling so much in all these businesses, running all this chaos? Quit.
Right.
So I did.
Right.
And it was the worst time in my life. And what I did was I closed all the businesses, sold some of the businesses, and I actually 1031 exchanged my apartment buildings into triple net assets and all commercial assets that run themselves. And I retired and I went to the Fontainebleau in Miami.
Right.
And I'm going to be just honest here. I have drank throughout my career. Like, I had a limousine from 27 to 47. So in Iowa, we had a lot of good times. And I drank on weekends and whatnot. And then that happened. Now, when you have nothing to do and no emails to take and no meetings to take, when they say free time is the devil's playground, he's 100% right. So I have nothing to do, right? So I kind of created really bad habits. I overindulged in alcohol. Now, I've never done drugs in my life, so it's never been a thing in my life, but I way overindulged in alcohol, hung out with the wrong places, wrong people. Just being honest, I was in Fontainebleau in Miami for a year, beautiful $25,000 a month condo. I'm ordering bottle service 3 nights a week. Wow. So I'm very promiscuous. I'm not who I am today. And I thank God I went through that. But nobody should go through that. It's not fun. I mean, I thought everybody was like, you should just retire and do nothing. So the income was coming in, I had money in the bank, no stress and no worries. But now you go through struggles and you kind of thank God for the stress and worries, because if you have nothing to do and no emails and no calls and no meetings and no deadlines and no nothing, you do bad things and you spend. It's not like my net worth grew then. It didn't go up. It went down. It went backwards. So it's not like you make good decisions. So man, I tell you, and it's crazy to say that because it was not a good time in my life. And you think it is, That was 8 years ago, and I was, barely turning 40. And I'm like, I went to Vegas, went crazy, chartered a private jet, went to Scottsdale, did a VIP game, gambled like crazy, did the naughty things. And then I just decided to stop all that. And I actually went to a Grant Cardone conference and did some coaching with Grant and actually Elena. And Elena made a good comment to me at a thing in JW Marriott, and it was out of her book. And she said, every day you're making a decision that you're either building an empire or you're tearing it down. There's no in between. And I was like, man, I've been making some bad decisions for like years. Where were you at 3 years? You know what I mean? Like everybody tells you, go golf and lay on the beach and do nothing. What they don't tell you is maybe that's not fulfilling for you, or that's not your avenue. That's probably great for a lot of people, but I need the drive. I need the carrot. I need the Reebok shoes. I need those things. And I just wasn't mature enough to have nothing to do. I just wasn't me. I wasn't mature enough. I'm still not today. I'm still crazy busy, working way harder than I ever have. but the success and the reward is in overcoming the challenges. Thank God.
Now, you have you ever been married before?
I've
Children?
never been
No?
married and no kids.
Okay.
I've not figured out that part of life.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, Tom, I'm curious. That's
Sure.
you know,
You can ask me anything.
Yeah. So I'm on my second and final marriage.
Love it.
I have one wonderful 24-year-old daughter from my first marriage. I feel like I've done it not right, and I feel like I've done it right. So I know a little bit about this topic, but I'm just curious because I would imagine too that when you are very successful in your starting relationship or trying to start a relationship, that comes with some challenges, especially in today's world.
Yes.
Right, big target on your back.
Yes.
All that kind of, especially in Miami.
Yes.
So maybe talk a little bit about that.
And okay, and I put that target on my back.
Sure.
So how this angle goes is, I'm 20, 21, I'm starting to make some good money, right? At the age of 23, I meet this girl, I'm in love.
Right.
So then I get to focus on my career. I tell you, everybody, go get in love and get a good woman. Single is not good. So anyway, 23, I fall in love. What happens is she starts working in my business, and I'm building the apartments at this time. I have a vending machine business. I have several things going on. She's working with me. And we get to a point we're traveling, and 4 years into the relationship, I put a ring on her finger. I'm ready. And what happened was I wasn't putting the effort into that relationship. All of my effort went into my business and making money and wealth and future. Well, she was unfaithful to me. So what happened was she didn't really work. So she just I had businesses and I took care of everything. And she wanted to work at a bar. And I was like, that doesn't align with who I am. So you can't. So long story short, she ended up doing it behind my back and was unfaithful. So what happened is I got really hurt. So at the age of 27 and a half, I was in a 4.5-year relationship that I was able to focus completely on business, and I got damaged. I was then I was a bad boy. Right. That's when I got the limousine. And in Iowa, actually, a lot of guys have limos, and I was out and about a lot. And I hate to admit this. Do not do this. Please learn from my lessons. Please. Right. You lose a lot of money chasing women, but you never lose. You never lose women chasing money. So I spent a lot of time and energy chasing women. I guarantee I'd be much wealthier and better off. I would have found a couple of good women. But no, I led with my wealth, and I got all the wrong girls. I never dated anybody over the age of 26. Right. From the age of 27 to 47, I never dated anybody over the age of 26. Right. And I retired every girl I ever dated. And I did everything wrong. Thank God I got an amazing one now today. I'm very fortunate, but I had to become the man in the mirror that I needed to be. That I always say that, if the dad were looking at me and say, hey, I am so crazy proud of who my daughter's dating, and that's who I want to be now. And I wasn't that guy before. So he wasn't going to give me my right girl until I got my own head out of my ass. So yeah, you do have a target on your back, but you also can do it right. Yep. Like today I live in faith and I'm blessed, and I thank you, Lord. I've never been unfaithful. I've really tried to do the best with the girls, but you put 100 girls in the room, I would pick the wrong one every time. And don't try to date in Miami and living in the Fontainebleau. I mean, it just doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, I love Miami. It's great here, but it was a challenge and not beneficial, and I wasn't mature enough. Right. So I've matured a lot over the last few years.
So do you think you'll ever get married, ever have children? Or?
100%. I don't know if I'll have children, but I absolutely want to be married, of course. I've done one of my mentors, and my blessings is in 2008, I got introduced to a man by the name of Dean Graziosi. So Dean is my hero, my mentor. In 2008 to 2013, him and I flipped 1,000 homes. Wow. We flipped 1,000 single-family homes in the Illinois, Iowa area, and we had a blast doing it. And he's mentored me since then. I'm so fortunate, and thank God. And him and his wife, Lisa, they're my heroes, right? Like their relationship, like when he goes to the bathroom, she can't tell me enough good things about him and doesn't even need to tell him. She tells me, like when he goes to the bathroom, she does that. When she goes to the bathroom, he's like, I'm so in love with her. I can't even stand 5 seconds without her. And I've only learned that type of relationship is available in honestly the last 5 years. So that's kind of what my next step is chasing. We're all chasing something. And one of my mentors is Josh Shogowski, a dear friend of mine out of Utah. And he's just taught me about family and love. And that is probably my next goal to, we always have those goals and those hills to climb, your next floor is your old, ceiling. So my next floor, old ceiling would be obviously more net worth, but obviously that love and passion of a wife. So yeah, 100% want that. I just put so much effort into myself before, and you risk other things when you put so much effort into your finances and into your wealth, of course.
Yeah, I find it's hard to find those people, you mentioned like someone like you see a Grant Cardone or
Yeah.
an Alex Hormozy
And
or
Alex, yeah, of
or a
course.
Tom Bilyeu, people that are super, super successful, but they aren't necessarily living balanced life. Like to me, I don't really want to work 80 or 90 hours a week anymore. Yeah, I don't mind
Agreed.
working hard, and I don't even mind
Yeah.
occasionally working 80 or 90 hours a week,
Yeah.
but I don't want it to be the norm.
Right.
And I feel like, having some more role models out there that maybe are a little bit more balanced in their relationships, their friendships, their philanthropy.
Yes.
Maybe talk a little bit about that. I don't know, is it all connected to your faith, or is some of the things that you
No,
do
I think a lot of that
philanthropically
is faith. And, I formed my own foundation in 2021 called Andy's Kids. And that was truly because Dean Graziosi, being my mentor and my hero, is tied. His partner is Tony Robbins. And, he's feeding, millions and millions of people. So I just wanted to feed people. So we started 2021 just feeding about 50 people a day. I created my own foundation and to give back because I became, I was really poor. I mean, there was times we didn't have food. Right. So thank you, Lord. It's not just faith, it's giving back. Like, to be honest with you, when I had more free time and I was in Iowa, I was serving the homeless once a week at our foundation place on Brady Street in Davenport. And I love that. I mean, that gave me a lot more clarity of who I want to be, and I want to do more of that. So philanthropy, of course, ties into the faith and just giving back. Like, I've met so many, these guys, I remember serving, I literally tried to serve every single week, and you'd meet guys that, are addicted to drugs and crack and heroin, and I met prostitutes, I met pimps, I met them all. But it didn't happen over one time. I remember this conversation with this guy a few months ago that he was living on the street and he had a massive drug problem. And I was like, let's just go backwards. And I noticed something in these conversations when you communicate with these guys that are living on the street and drugs. And he was like, it wasn't one decision. It was one thing led to two. 2 led to 4, 4 led to 8. And this guy's particular situation, and this hit home with me, was he was married with kids and he had a heart attack and he didn't have health insurance. That led to a drinking problem.
Right.
That led, and I don't drink. I haven't drank in 4 years, not a drop. That drinking problem led to a drug problem. And I've never done a drug in my life, but I understood it after talking to this. That drug problem led to the wife, the kids leaving him. That led him to living on the street. It was like one decision after another. And I would say I'm grateful for is having those conversations. Because when you see that guy begging on the corner, you don't know how he got there.
Yeah.
You don't know what that man's going through. And I try to, if I have cash to give those guys, give a little grace, because if you have some conversations, and I remember I'm from Iowa and I also have a condo at Trump Tower in Chicago. And I remember one of the best ways, we all have a horrible day, right? The number one way for me to fix a bad day was go to the ATM, and I think you could get 300 or 500 out and walk down Michigan Avenue in Chicago. And I remember I did this regularly because I have a lot more bad days than I have good. With real estate and stress and the economy, it's been a challenging couple of years, just being honest. That got me out of that funk. Have you ever noticed that? Like, you could be having the worst day of your life and you just want to focus on the negative. And then, I mean, even in high school, I remember giving the guy at Hardee's in Aledo with my brother enough to buy a cheeseburger, and then going up and down Michigan Avenue and giving a couple of dollars. And I know, and people make fun of me about that too, because I was like, the one guy, I gave him $100. He went in and bought a $50 bottle of vodka. I don't care. That's not my decision. That has nothing to do with me if he spends every dollar. I remember a guy didn't have shoes. I gave him some new shoes that I had. And I'm not looking at anything. I'm just saying, if you extend some grace and we have some uncomfortable days, if we can go help someone else. And I think that's what's changing my life a lot lately, is it's been a challenging, 2024 was one of the most challenging real estate years I've ever been in. And the one thing that helps get through that is help someone below you, or somebody else that's going through a struggle.
Right.
Like I'm in 4 different masterminds that I'm massively passionate about. And I'm able and fortunate I have a circle of friends that I don't know why God has blessed me with the best circle in life, but I have guys that are like Dean Graziosi, Josh Zagowski, Sean Martin, Yarek Tadla. These guys are Chris and Dina Roush. These are just amazing humans. I don't even know how God put them in my life, but they became because of masterminds, and they are all giving, and they're giving to me and their knowledge and education. So I'm trying to do that and mentor other people. And I tell you, that helps you get through a lot. So I think it's philanthropy and a tie to faith, a little bit of both.
Yeah. So people underestimate. I mean, again, I don't know that there's any path to purpose and happiness that doesn't include service to others. I don't know that it's even possible.
I know, dude.
Yeah.
And you try to tell people that are on the come up, that first couple of million, your first million, you're just grinding it out. Every dollar's got to go into your wealth drop bucket, right? Yeah. And I remember, you're going to laugh, my brother, on the $10,000 to get my brother to lose the weight, I said, I really want you to do this. He didn't do it, but I would like to see you give 10% to the church, or it doesn't have to be to church. Give it to a homeless guy in the street, or whatever you may be. Give it to Joel Osteen, whatever it may be. And then put a certain amount into education and a certain amount towards your future, and then enjoy the rest. He didn't, but that's okay. You can't get everybody to do that. But you're right. You just can't outgive God, like the servant mentality. And I tell you, I've been very fortunate to make a lot of mistakes in my life. So I've made more mistakes to get where I am at. I'm 48 years old, and I feel I've made every mistake you can make. I feel like, I mean, I've gone through I've done 1,000 apartments. I did 1,000 houses. I have 39 strip malls today. I'm very fortunate, and thank God. I had 6 different companies, and I've never hit the goals of like these other guys I'm talking about. They're way bigger than me, but they still talk to me, and they're nice to me. And, I learned from the Alex Hormozi and the Tony Robbins and the Pace Morbys and the Dan Flashmans and the guys teaching me, and I'm so thankful to them. Part of the reason I'm trying to so much help the guy that's, say, at 5 million trying to get to 40, or the guy from 2 million to get to 10, or 10 to 30, whatever it may be, right? Because these guys above me are giving me so much. I'm like, I don't even have to talk to them, but I owe a lot of people. I owe a lot of people education through, and that's why I'm trying to do the podcast too, because I've done every mistake. Like if you were to screw something up, I've done it wrong. I mean, I really have.
Right.
So
if you could go back in a time machine to the 25-year-old version of yourself and give yourself some advice, would it be, hey, just do it all, make all those same mistakes because that's what's going to make you grow? Or if you could do it over, what would you do differently?
And I get asked that a lot. The only thing I would say differently was I wouldn't focus so much. And I still have to tell myself, but do you ever notice, guys, we always want to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't care about? That's a big one.
Right.
I've done that my whole life, and I need to get away from that. We always want to impress those guys, and they don't care. Right. You know how much judgment comes at us all over the years? And I would go back to that younger guy and just keep fighting through it, and don't get distracted. One of the best pieces of words of wisdom I got from Dean was, like, when I was doing all these businesses, you can't be amazing at everything, right? Like, I feel we have a bookshelf in life, and the bookshelf only has so much room. You can't just keep adding books, you can't keep adding things. I was doing so many different businesses. If I would have just went all in on real estate, and if I would have went in more on my faith and more into philanthropy and more in just real estate and not trying to do 9 different things, don't be great at everything. Just be good at a couple of things. I really wanted to be great at everything, and hate to admit this on air, but I'm struggling through this. I'm a massive people pleaser. I want to make everyone happy. I'm a nice guy, not in control of execution. Nice guys is good, but it's also bad. And you gotta, how to get out of Egypt and get to the promised land, you gotta learn to say no. And that was the big thing in 2018. I had six different operational companies, 1,000 apartments. I'm getting dragged in 9 different directions. You know when my wealth started to skyrocket was I just went into triple net assets, and I bought grocery stores and Walgreens and Starbucks and Buffalo Wild Wings, and I have so Aspen Dentals, you name it. Your triple net national deals, and I focused on that as opposed to focusing on that. You know what I mean? learn to say no.
Mm.
Don't be a people pleaser, and stop buying things to impress people that don't care. I mean, I got a lot of words of wisdom.
That's a pretty good advice. That's pretty good advice. Yeah, to me, it's like I don't mind spending money. I much rather spend money on experiences than things.
For sure. For
So-
sure. Now, I'm a watch guy though, but I will say
Right.
I've got I think 9 Rolexes, and I have Breitlings and APs, and I have all those things.
Mhm.
But all of mine were 100% tied to a building. Like if you got this building, like when I
Right.
closed the 35 plex, that's when I got the watch.
Right.
So everything was tied to something. So I will say that to a younger guy too. Don't forget to reward yourself. I'm not saying overspend or doing things, but I would really, if I could go back, and this is going to sound crazy too, but if I could go back and would have started listening to 30 minutes of Joel Osteen 5 days a week a decade ago, I'd be a much better man. Ed Milet said it best. The biggest thing I don't want to meet at my deathbed is the guy I could have become.
Right.
That's the scariest thing. I want us to be so close, and I do not want to meet the guy I could have become. And if I would have put more focus in my 20s and 30s into faith, philanthropy, giving, and educating others, as opposed to ego, watches, Ferraris, trips, whatever the silliness may be,
Right.
which over, I'm 48. Those things don't matter much now. And it's so silly that we're sitting in Miami, because nothing against Miami. But man, they put so much of your net worth and your value into your car, or your watch,
Yeah.
or whatever silliness it may never be. And it's so crazy, because the wealthiest guys I know don't give a crap about any of that stuff. And they give away millions of dollars quietly and don't even talk about it.
Yep.
And that's who I want to aspire to be.
Yeah. I had a mentor of mine who sadly passed away, but one of the things
Sorry.
one of the things that he taught me was he was the one. He always paid for everything. Whenever no one was that, but he did it in such a cool way. Like, you go to the bathroom and he
Yep.
just made sure that
And
they had
I
his
do
credit
that.
card. Yeah, it's just like, as opposed to the people, and this guy or
Oh,
this
I
gal,
know.
they make a big deal. They pay for everything, but they make a big deal about
You're
it.
going to know about
Yeah.
it. You're going to
You
know
never
about
hear the end of it. So
Absolutely.
I'd rather pay my own bill.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to. It's so true. I don't need to go through it. I don't need to owe you one, right? No. I agree. I love that.
Now, so it sounds like you're actively mentoring other people as well, and so not just because it sounds like you have a number of mentors, not just like one or two, but
I
quite a
am
few.
so fortunate, dude.
I'm very, very envious. I have to tell you,
I am so. I words cannot express. If I had the biggest thing, if I had the biggest thing, God would be is the circle that I have. Like
Right.
whether it's Dean Graziosi or Josh or Yarrick or Sean or Chris. I mean, I have people that, they are so amazing. I just think back, and what happens is, Dan Flashman said this the other day. He's like, when you are in circles that they're up here, you're going to rise to them. And I've really noticed that. I'm in a mastermind with Dean and Tony that we go to Scottsdale next week. Thank you, God. And when you're sitting with those people, it's amazing, because here's the thing very noticeable. In the come up, everything is like I'm very relationship based. I'm not transactional based. And I hate to admit, I don't know what I was in my 20s, but today I'm 100% relationship based. Mm-hmm. And when you sit in rooms with big guys, and this mastermind group that I'm in are big guys, they're way above me. I don't even know how I'm in the room. I have no idea how I'm in that room, but I'm in that room. And it's scary as heck, to be honest with you. All they ask, all the 9-figure guys I know, all the 9-figure guys I know in that group, all they ask is, how can I add value to you? And I'm like, how are you doing that? Why are you doing that? What do you mean? Dean makes me nervous just talking to him. And he's been my close friend and mentor since 2008. And he scares me because he's such a kind, giving guy. And he's so like, how do I help you?
Yeah.
How do I, Andy, what do you need? And I'm like, you're my hero, and so what I'm trying to do, it sounds weird, but what they're doing to me, I'm trying to do the guy who maybe just hit his first 10 million or 5, whatever it may be, or his first 100 grand, the number doesn't matter. The number will change over time, but I am so fortunate there, that I do have an amazing circle of friends and mentors and heroes that are just, Dean is close with Alex, and, I've never met Alex, but, or Ed Milet, or these guys. And I'm like, I've met some amazing, Tony Robbins has been a huge, huge influence in my life. And that man, him and Dean Graziosi have their own heaven. They have their own special heaven. They have no need for money. Neither one of these men need any money. And they're still working 14 hours a day to give, and give. And so I'm trying to learn to be that. Like Dean doesn't care about cars. He drives an F-150. He could drive 30 Bugattis tomorrow if he wanted.
Right.
He has nothing to prove. So I'm trying to learn. I like cars still, but
Right.
I'm trying to learn to become that guy.
Right.
And I am fortunate, thank God, that God has put some amazing, and I don't know why, but I'm just fortunate trying to be that guy. But it does level us up.
Yeah.
You know, if you hang out with a bunch of people that are struggling and challenging at all times, you're going to be that guy if you're the fifth. But to be honest with you, the circle I was hanging out when I retired was, I mean, I hate to admit it, but you'd go to the bar at 5 o'clock.
Right.
We'd all meet there 3 nights a week, and you'd, have your 10 drinks, and you'd complain and bitch about something or someone or whatever, or make, improper decisions. And it's everything about the circle you're around. And now the circle I'm around is like, Josh has taught me so much about family and love and life. And I wasn't getting mentored 10 years ago about love and who are you helping and who are you mentoring. I was like, make more money, more money, more money, more money, right? And now it's not at all about money. The money will figure itself out. I mean, it really will. But I'm trying to learn more about love and family. And to be honest, that's a harder thing to learn. I've never been married, don't have kids. And I'll be honest, my family, I retired my parents before the age of 30. I paid off my mom's mortgage and then recited her house. She called the Better Business Bureau because my ciders didn't do it fast enough. It was a $28,000, and I'm 30 years old building a home improvement company. I paid off my mom's mortgage.
Right.
And I had a Better Business Bureau complaint because my ciders wasn't doing it fast enough. No offense, she's passed, so God willing. It is what it is. She taught me to be who I am, but they are who they are. But I just want to be the best I can be, and I think her looking down in heaven would be proud of who I became.
Yeah, gratitude's, if you start your day with gratitude, it's hard to have a bad day.
It is. It is.
I mean, Joel Osteen's probably pretty helpful in that respect, I would think.
And I tell you, and I know everybody thinks I'm nuts, but I can promise you, I spend 30 minutes a day. My girlfriend's like, you spend a lot of time listening to Joel. And I go, I have zero regrets for how much time I spend listening to Joel. And I know he's inspirational, and it's not all just, faith, but it's a lot of everything. And I love it. I spend minimum 30 minutes a day with Joel Osteen, minimum 30 minutes a day of reading self-education, whether it be books that my mentors are telling me to read. Anything they tell me to read, I jump on it. There's this Chad in the Zenith group. He tells me to read it, I read it. His book is awesome. Or Pace Morby tells, do this, I do it. If they're above me and they say jump, I kind of say how high. And if they have what I want, the biggest thing I'm seeing with these 9-figure guys is their number one thing is not the new Ferrari or Bugatti or Lamborghini or Rolls Royce. It's their family. And taking their wife or the kids on a trip. And that's who I'm aspiring to be now. And I'll be honest, I wasn't that guy in my 20s.
Yeah, no, I've had that same evolution myself. So I have a skydiving question because I have a skydiving story. So when my dad was turning 50, so this was like over 35 years ago almost, I took my dad skydiving, and we were going to do tandem jumps, so that we could actually free fall. So I'm like maybe the third to go. We're jumping from, I think it was 12,000 feet. And my dad's maybe like 3 or 4 people behind me. When I land, my dad's already on the ground. He was like 3 or 4 people behind me. I'm like, I may not be a physics major, but I know that I should have landed way before him. Turned out, and the guy he tandem jumped with was like white as a ghost. Apparently his first chute got tangled up. He had to cut it loose.
Which happens.
And he got the second chute. He said he only got open with like maybe 10 or 15 seconds to spare.
Oh, that's tight for a
He
tandem.
really, that's why the guy was like, so my dad had no idea. My dad's like, everything's fine. That doesn't happen a lot. Tandem, exactly. And I have not skydived again since then. Mine was fine, but my dad came pretty close to splat.
I've actually done 27 skydives in one day before. One day I've made 27 skydives. Wow. I've made 2,300 jumps. I've had 6 parachutes. Sorry, I apologize. 5 parachutes not work, and a 6th parachute was intentional. Part of the reason, crazy.
Intentional.
So part of the reason I bought the limousine at the age of 27 was my best friend at that time. He was just getting into real estate. He had a business, 4 kids. We got into motorcycles. I'm a huge motorcycle. I'm a stunt motorcycle rider. I love wheelies and anything crazy. But anyway, he died on my motorcycle, and he was drinking and driving. So I bought the limousine so none of my friends would ever die again. Okay. So people thought I bought it for arrogance. I bought it, and then I ended up giving it to charity and doing a lot of charity events. But the skydiving, He was a skydiver, and we were on a skydiving team. I made 200 to 300 jumps a year for almost a decade, and he died on the motorcycle. So we do an ash dive where you spread the ashes across the sky.
Okay.
So his family, we did like a funeral, and they're in the crowd at Skydive Chicago. It's funny, Rook Nelson just messaged me. But anyway, I flew in over I'm under my main canopy, flying under my canopy, and I did an intentional.
Okay.
So I cut it away, let that canopy go away, and then the reserve comes out. It's something you do for someone
Got it.
when they you do an ash dive. You do an intentional cutaway. But yeah, I had 5 parachutes not work and 1 intentional. But the tandem, that doesn't happen a lot, man.
Exactly. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should not do another jump.
It's such a safe sport. I think everybody should try it once. My first skydive, I'd never traveled. So that first year I made 102 grand, right? So you're a rich kid, right? You think you're rich. I did a month vacation at the end of the year. I did 2 weeks in Hawaii. 2 weeks in Hawaii, and then I went 2 weeks in Florida, but I skydived. I had never skydived before, and I liked it. I was 21 years old. It was fun. And then I got into skydiving when I got back, and then I started flying. I got my pilot's license at 21 too. So I got to fly down here in Miami, but I've been flying for 27 years as well.
And are you instrument?
So 2 years ago, and that's okay. So that's another thing real quick. I could talk forever. You got to be careful with me. So I like 2.5, 3 years ago, I got into I just want to be good at everything. So I used to golf 50 rounds a year. I lived on a golf course. So I hired a golf coach, and I tried to I was an 18 handicap, and I wanted to get to 12, and I was single engine flying, and I wanted to do retractable, and then I wanted to get my IFR. I wanted to get my instrument, my twin engine. I got into martial arts, and then I got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So it's funny where you try to take on everything. I got to my blue belt in karate. I've always done martial arts. So I was doing all the karate, trying to play 4 rounds of golf a week, skydiving 40 jumps a year, and flying. I spent 6 figures a year getting my instruments and flying. And then I was like, man, what am I doing here? I took up piano. I'm trying to do piano, and I'm doing the real estate. So in 2021, I'm trying to be great at everything. And then that's when Dean tells me, you got a bookshelf. Where do you want to be? So I obviously cut all that back, and I don't fly as much as I used to, but I still love flying. And I flew a dozen hours or 20 hours, I think, last year or so.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a fun hobby.
Yeah. I took flying lessons, just prop plane flying lessons.
Yeah. Single engine, Cessna 152, Cessna 172, and Archer 181.
Flying's not hard. It's landing that's a little difficult.
Everybody can take off. It's the landing that takes a little critiquing, but I love flying. It's a good hobby.
Yeah. The guy's on the board of one of the companies I do stuff for. He just be his own plane, and then he just got his own jet. But he has the ones that have where the plane has the parachute.
The Cirrus. Yeah, that has the parachute. Those are cool.
Like, okay, that makes me a little more comfortable. Like if it all goes to shit, just hit the chute.
It's funny. We always go through the things where we want to accomplish so much, and there's so many little things to do, and you can't be great at everything.
No, it's true. And it's I decided for myself that at some point, maybe in my 40s, like I didn't want to have a hobby where a mistake would have me dead. So I'm like,
And it's funny too, because flying, dude, so I crashed one airplane. Right. I was flying to Des Moines to look at some building. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but I ran out of fuel once, and I landed in a cornfield. I heard so like 65 or 70% of all, it's running out of fuel is what happens, right? So most plane crashes are because of pilot error. Right. So when I was in Des Moines, I was talking to my president of my company, and I was busy, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, landed in a cornfield. I had to go over power lines, around trees, and I landed the plane in a cornfield and came out okay.
Wow.
One time it was a 28 knot crosswind. We were flying into Chicago. I was overloaded, and you get arrogant. This was in my 20s, and you fly the pattern. I'm like, I'm in a hurry. I'm flying 4 nights a week at this time. I'm good. Crosswind component. I was at the extreme. 28 knot crosswind, a grass strip runway. I overshoot the runway just by a little bit, and I go in the edge of the runway, and I dip into the ditch there and hit the prop. So that's a big no.
Yeah.
So crashing a plane or hitting a prop gets you in a little trouble. But yeah, they're usually pilot error. But so true too, because like 3 years ago, I was flying 3 nights a week, to get my instrument, my IFR, my retractable gear stuff. But it takes a lot of time and energy. And then I decided, why am I doing all this? Because my goal is to buy my own plane.
Sure.
I got to get back into commercial real estate and just focus on that. And
Yeah.
I don't need to be a single digit handicap on the golf. I'd rather be
Right.
single digit body fat than single digit handicap in golf.
Yeah.
So I switched my focus a little bit, and I missed the martial arts a lot. My instructor's in Iowa.
Right.
So it's just hard to get into everything.
Yeah, it is. Figure out how to,
That balance work.
yeah, how to have a little more balance. So I'm assuming you're into the biohacking a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Liquivita does all my stuff. Sam Tejada is a good friend of mine, so
Okay.
they do all that. Got into all the biohacking a few years ago.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I do infrared sauna, red light.
So I do
cold
infrared
plunge.
sauna every morning,
Right.
and then I don't know if you do the cold plunge, but I do
Right.
the cold plunge every day.
Yeah.
So I love, it's a love-hate relationship. Like this morning, I did it at 7 a.m. And today was hard. I don't know why. That 3 minutes. But yeah, I do the cold plunge, the infrared, the NAD treatment. I do all that stuff.
Well, I haven't done the NAD treatments, although I've heard good things. You had a good experience?
You know, I'm willing to do like literally just the last 5 years, kind of anything that's going to make your brain a little bit smarter. It's like a cheat code.
Yeah.
If I can cheat a little bit, and I will. I mean, that is like your NAD treatment. I swear I may be crazy, but when I do the NAD, I swear I can read a little bit faster. I feel like I can comprehend a little bit more. I'm doing a lot of math and a lot of numbers lately, but NAD is great. Anything that, do the IV treatments that can get me a little bit better shape and get me a little bit more of the edge, I'm willing to do it. But I'm learning all that too. But literally just a couple of years ago, I went all in on my health, because when my mom passed away, she passed away of a heart attack. My brother had a heart attack. I went to my doctors and I said, I'll take every darn test you can imagine.
Right.
And I did, and it came out okay, but that's just the doctors of regular medicine weren't there. So I hired, Gary Brecka was my neighbor. He is I lived in Sunny Isles. I was at Trump and he was at the Porsche building. So I became good friends with him in 2021 and he got me to do the NAD. We were at an event in Atlanta and Gary's like, try NAD. And I'm like, what is this NAD thing?
Yeah.
And he's like, try it. And that was in 2021. And when Gary Brecka tells you to do something, you say, yes, sir.
Yeah.
He's another guy, has no desire for money. That dude just wants to save the world. I texted him the other day. He's just the most giving kind. I had a friend go through some medical issues and I reached out to Gary. Let me help. I'm like, you're like the most popular man on earth. Thank you for texting me back. But just the nicest kind of, so he got me into NAD and all the biohacking. And he made me do that stupid cold plunge 3 years ago. So then I had one installed in my home and then I do it every day. So
And what I'm trying to figure out is because I was reading this article the other day because I used to do cold plunge, not too long after a workout, and they were actually recommending against that because they're saying it stops the hypertrophy of the muscles because it reduces inflammation.
And I don't know about the timing. He always told me to do it before my workouts.
Before, I think that sounds...
He says I do it before, and you can't do any heat afterwards, because I screwed up for like the first year where I did the plunge and then I did the sauna. Because at my home I had a steam room, an infrared, and the plunge, and you don't want to do anything hot after the plunge. So you got to do the plunge. Once you do the plunge, it's your last thing. Like this morning, I'll do 30 minutes in my infrared sauna, vitamin E shower, and then 3 minutes in the plunge.
Got it.
And man, I'll tell you the truth on the plunge. So I had the plunge installed in my house,
Right.
and I thought I was cool and I was tough. And Gary's like, do it at 44 degrees. So I did. First time I made 10 seconds. Second time I made 27 seconds. So I'm very much into coaching. I'm obviously in 4 masterminds. I'm always trying to learn from someone. Don't laugh. I hired a yoga coach to come in and do my breathing. First time.
Thought you're going to have, say, flew Wim Hof in.
No. I threw a yoga coach in to do it, and I never made it past 27 seconds.
Right.
And then I had her come in, boom, 3 minutes, and I've always been, it's just breathing and calming myself. But I don't like it. I'll be honest. I do it every day, and I don't love it.
Yeah.
I don't love it. But I do think it helps just mentally, and it gives me a little win in the morning. And I think it helps with a little bit of body fat.
For sure. Now, so how do you decide, as we're looking to wrap up here, how do you decide, okay, maybe I was trying to be, a concert pianist and a professional skydiver and a professional pilot and, a real estate mogul and whatever, 27 other things. Okay, man, now maybe I'm going to try for a little bit more balance. How do you think through that equation now?
I think 100% now it is whatever gives me the most reward. So like my biggest passion in life right now, obviously I love commercial real estate. The martial arts, why was that? Several other people were doing it and I wanted to beat them. I was competing. I didn't love the martial arts, but that took I did a private coach, 3-4 hour sessions a week. I'm spending $700 a week on martial arts and I'm not loving it.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to beat my buddy. So that's when I knew I got to not do that. I love golf. I lived on a golf course. I've never been amazing. My best round, to be totally honest, was an 82. I'm not trying to be pro, right? I don't need to be a single digit handicap. If I go out and be honest and shoot a 90, I hired a golf instructor at Deerfield last week. So I'm trying twice a week to get a little better, but I'm not going 4 days a week. I'm just trying to be honest to shoot in the mid 80s and doing 25 rounds a year. So my thing is whatever gives me the most reward. Commercial real estate gives me really a big reward. My masterminds that I'm a part of, huge reward. And the physical fitness, I'm spending 2 hours a day at the gym. That's giving me a massive reward. The other things like the pianist, that's the pickup chicks. I could sugarcoat this if you like, but girls like a guy that can play a piano. So I have a grand piano in my home. I was like, it looks good on a resume. So being totally truthful and honest, I don't do anything that makes other people happy anymore. It's more for me internally. So like the commercial real estate, I love. And getting it in shape, great. The golf, I don't need to shoot in the 70s and I'm probably not, so I do. Now, maybe later on in life when I got more free time, I will, and I'll get back into martial arts and flying the twins. I loved flying twins, but man, you want to blow through $4,000 in an afternoon, go fly twins. We were doing touch and goes in a Cessna 310 at 1,800 an hour. Like, why am I doing that?
Wow.
That's just silliness because all of that education and that 6 figures I spent in flying was great and fun. And I actually have my pilot's book in the car. What's that doing for me today? Because today I got to start all over. So I'm really just focusing on the things that give me the most reward and the things that I can educate other people on. Like, just stop making the silly mistakes I make. I tend to do that a lot.
I find that it's funny. When I was younger, I wrestled in college, and then I did triathlons pretty competitively for a few years. And I was training, back in college, I was probably training 30 hours a week, and triathlons probably 20 to 25 hours a week. And the reality is now I do exactly the opposite. I'm like, how can I compress my workout to the shortest, most efficient time possible? I've got it to about 40 minutes. I found that that's like my sweet spot.
It's probably perfect. My weights is 45 minutes a day. I used to want to work out 2 to 3 hours a day. A friend of mine does Ironmans, freaking 30 hours a week. So what I have learned, honestly, okay, if you want to play the piano and fly twins and do Ironmans or get 4%, whatever it may be, then the commercial real estate's going to slack, or the wealth track is going to slack. I can't do it all. So now I just make my bookshelf smaller. Because to get to the promised land and get out of Egypt, the biggest thing I've learned is learn to say no. And I can't do those things anymore. I will when I have more time, but I just don't have the time now.
How do you, you made this comment before, you said just recently you'd had a friend, kind of basically steal from you, not basically, but steal from you.
One of my best friends.
Yeah. One of your best friends. And I've had some somewhat similar experiences in my life. And it's like, I think that it's like most things in life. It's the thing that happens isn't the thing that messes you up. It's your reaction to the thing that happened, right? It's like, it's not the crime, it's the cover up from the crime, right? Is usually what happens. And so what I find is that what I've tried not to do is take a bad experience and have that sort of live rent free in my head and be like, hey, one person screwed me over, therefore everyone's going to screw me over, right? Like trust but verify. It doesn't mean that I'm a sucker, but I think it'd be a mistake to let bad experiences pollute future experiences. What's your feeling about that? Having just gone through something like that
You couldn't have nailed that any better, because here's the challenge. Like that girl cheating on me at 27.
Right.
What did I do? I spent 2 decades thinking every girl is going to cheat on me.
Right.
So I'm not going to let them.
Right.
I'm going to hurt them before they hurt me. I'm not going to open my heart. Totally wrong. Right. I think is it allowed to say you didn't grow up until you're about 44 years old? Is that possible? I don't think I grew up until I was about 44. So I did the exact opposite, and I could go back. I wish I would have just forgave her internally, because I didn't, and moved past it. And you're so right too. I have literally had some people just really hurt me in the last couple of years. And I mean, stealing hundreds and hundreds of thousands, and the other one 7 figures. millions. And I think that is a challenge because it is hard to trust and it's hard. But I think for me, I have to forgive him and let it go, but also just learn next time, don't be so trusting, because I'm so much now, trust but verify.
Yeah.
And before I wasn't. I was not trust and verify. You were nice, you're good. You're going to be. I'm from Iowa. We don't lock our doors. We don't lock our cars. And now I'm in Florida. Everybody's got their hand in your pocket. Everybody thinks. So I don't want to become the Miami person that thinks everybody's going to steal from you, because people here, they live on the edge. Like everybody's evil. Everybody's going to take for you. I never want to be that guy, but I definitely want to trust and verify. But I think for me, and it's still a challenge. So we're both talking on the same page, is to learn to forgive those. The guy that literally stole 6 figures from me and did it with a smile on his face with no problem, and then said, who cares? You can afford it type answer. And I'm like, no, that's not true. But I don't want to be that guy that becomes so cold-hearted that I don't trust anymore. Because I did that, and I learned that the hard way when she cheated at 27. I thought everybody would do that. So I when I was young, I promised my mom my real father was unfaithful and I would never be that guy. So I just went the exact opposite. I'll just never give a girl my heart. So I don't want to go that avenue. So I think also just the trust and verify for sure.
Yeah,
As you probably got to know. I mean, you're a nice guy as well.
I'm about a decade older than you.
Yeah.
So, I always joke too that the only thing I'm certain of is that I can't possibly have figured it out yet. Because every time I look back, like when I was 30, I was an idiot when I was 30, but when I was 35, I knew what I was doing. But then when I was 40, I look back at 35, no, I was an idiot when I was 35, but now I'm 40, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
I just realized I'm never going to know what I'm doing. But I try to get a little bit better. And I guess the one thing I think I maybe have figured out is, I figured it out actually on I was on someone else's podcast, and they were asking me questions about vulnerability and authenticity. And because for me, I think of vulnerability and authenticity as a superpower. I think that if you can be vulnerable and authentic, then you can create.
And how rare is that today's world?
It shouldn't be, but it really is. And I think that's mostly because people aren't that comfortable in their own skin. But she was asking me about how I thought about, injuries or things that had happened, bad things that, someone cheating or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's literally nothing that's ever happened in my life, nothing that I frame as an injury. It just doesn't occur to me. Like,
I like that.
I'll be like, and I could be like, cause I'll tell stories about, maybe to a close friend about family member who screwed me over, or a friend who screwed me over, or a business person. I'll be like, how could you possibly get over that? And I'm like, what's the alternative? Drag it along for the rest of my life? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
See, if you could have taught me that 20 years ago, that would have been helpful. So people listen to what you're saying. No, you're right though. You nailed it. Absolutely. Don't frame it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I really do think it's that is the one thing you have complete control over, is how you can't control all the.
We can only control how we react, for sure.
Exactly.
You can't control what they do, for sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think that you've had such an interesting journey you've been on, and I'd love to stay in touch.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very, very much.